I've got bad news. Free speech is gone, man. It is dead and buried. So last week we had Patty Cosgrave. He runs a big tech conference called Web Summit, and he made some comments on social media. So he came out and said, war crimes are war crimes. Doesn't matter if our allies are committing the war crimes, they are still war crimes, okay? Seems like a pretty reasonable position. Seems like if we believe in human rights, we want to call out bad behavior, no matter what the side is, no matter what the political affiliation is. But instead of reflection, instead of debate, instead of discussion, he was destroyed on social media. There was such a backlash against him. He had sponsors pulling out of his conference, Amazon, Google, and Facebook threatened to pull out. And finally he said, you know what, this is just too much of a distraction. I'm going to quit. I'm going to hand the reins over to someone else. Think about this for a second. Two of the biggest media platforms in the world, Facebook and Google, are pulling out because they didn't like what Patty had to say. What does that say about their commitment to free speech? What does that say about what we can and cannot say online? About what views we are allowed to hold? What views we are allowed to express? And this policy of destroying free speech has just gotten worse over time. We saw hints of this with cancel culture when it started 15 years ago. It got worse with social media. We got to COVID. It got really bad. You could not criticize government policy. You could not raise questions about vaccines. We got to Russia and Ukraine, and it became even worse. People were losing their jobs because they refused to condemn Vladimir Putin. So, not just for what they said, but for what they did not say, what they refused to say, they were canceled. And now in the current environment, man, if you don't have the right view, you are done. You can't get a job. You are destroying your relationships. You are destroying your entire life. So you know what? You better fall in line. This is really, really dangerous territory. We've seen examples of this in the past. Let's go back to the war on terror. You remember that? We launched it in the wake of the 9/11 terrorist attacks. We invaded Afghanistan. We invaded Iraq. We were responsible for 1 million civilians dying. We spent $2 trillion. We created death and destruction and got nothing in exchange. And the reason that happened, you could not speak out against policy at that time. If you did, you were unpatriotic. And that was before social media. That was before cancel culture. Think about how much worse the situation is today. Now, if we don't have free speech, if we can't share ideas, there is no check on insanity. We can go in whatever crazy direction some group wants to take us because there's no debate, there's no discussion of alternatives, there's no pushback. We just got to charge ahead. And if anyone says something we don't like, we steamroll them. We run them over. We cancel them. We destroy them. This is some 1984 type shit. It leads to polarization, to authoritarianism, to suffering, to violations of human rights. And guess what? That's exactly where we are right now. Peace.